Faces placed into your Photoshop file. You're probably going to want to make the heads approximately the same size. So if one head is much bigger than the other, adjust the size by hitting Control T, and then either make it bigger or smaller depending on what your needs are. So we want them to be approximately the same size. So we're going to have to tweak it a little bit to make them line up a little closer, but if you start with them being about the same size, it'll make that a lot easier. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to probably put Voldemort here on the other side, because we don't have a complete face on either one of them, so we're going to use the sides of their faces that are, one, more visible, and two, more complete. So what we need to do is we're going to need to flip Voldemort's face, so it's going to be the other side that we see highlighted, the more complete side. So to do that, you're going to go up to Edit, scroll down till you find Transform, and then we're going to flip horizontal. So Edit, Transform, flip horizontal. So we're going to change the orientation his face is looking. So his highlight will now be on the left side instead of the right side. Okay, so once you've made that change, we're going to crop this picture down a little bit as well, because we only want half of his face, and right now we have 3/4 of his face, so we're going to cut part of it off. Okay, so to cut part of it off, we're going to take our rectangular marquee tool, flip Voldemort's face so it's facing the other way. So Edit, Transform, and flip horizontal. Okay, so now we're going to take our rectangular marquee tool, and I'm going to come over here to the edge of his face, and I'm going to cover over this last little bit. So starting from the middle, going over towards the right with my marquee tool, and then I'm going to hit delete or backspace, and we're just going to cut that little bit off. Okay, so I'm going to hit Control D to deselect. Okay, so I'm going to slide Harry's face over a little bit, put it in the center, and I'm going to line up those two faces right down the middle. So they're not going to necessarily line up perfectly, but we're going to adjust it so that they are a little more symmetrical. But go ahead and start by overlapping those two edges right through the center. So half the face will be Voldemort, half the face will be Harry's. Okay, so now what we need to do is we need to adjust Voldemort's face so his mouth and his nose line up a little more parallel with Harry. So to do that, we're going to warp his face a little bit. So go up to Edit. We're going to Edit, Transform, and Warp. Edit, Transform, and Warp. On Voldemort's face. Edit, Transform, and Warp. And then what you can do is just click and drag to move his mouth up so his mouth will line up with Harry's mouth. Okay, so we want their lips to kind of line up, be in the same spot. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I want to make this a little more seamless. Right now I still have a hard line where Voldemort's face meets Harry's face, and I want that to merge a little softer. So I'm going to take my eraser. I'm going to set my hardness to 0, and I'm going to make it a decent size. I don't know, maybe about the size of Harry's pupil. That's probably a good size. Maybe not much bigger than that. And then what we're going to do is we're going to take the soft eraser and go along the edge here, and we're going to kind of erase that hard line so that these two faces will kind of merge a little smoother. We won't see such a hard edge. Okay. I'm also going to take this eraser and I'm going to erase a little bit of Voldemort's face where the bridge of Harry's glasses come over, so that we can see part of that bridge extending over onto Voldemort's face. Merge these two layers together, okay? So over here in your layers, go to your very top layer, whatever layer is on top. My Voldemort layer is on top, so I'm going to click on that layer. Okay, and we're going to create a new layer that merges these two pictures together. So to do that, you're going to hold 4 keys down. So you start with Shift, hold that down, Alt, Control, and E. So Shift, Alt, Control, E. Hold those 4 keys down at the same time, so it might take you 2 hands to do that. But when you're on the top layer, hold Shift, Control, or Shift, Alt, Control, E. Shift, Alt, Control, E. And when you do that, it'll create a new layer that merges those 2 layers together. Okay, now that I've merged those 2 layers together, I'm going to increase the size of the face here so it takes up more space, because I've got lots of white space I don't want to see. So I'm going to blow that up, increase the size so it fills up the space a little better. Okay, so once you've filled out to the sides, we're going to crop the top and the bottom. So we'll use our crop tool, and I'm going to crop this down a little bit. Now what we're going to do is we're going to run a filter over top of this to help it to blend even nicer together. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my filter gallery. So under filter, go into your filter gallery. Won't let you. Filter gallery. Okay, so I'm going to use I'm going to either use my cutout filter under the artistic filters, or maybe dry brush. If you use the cutout, you want to make sure your number of levels is set to 8, your edge fidelity is set to 3, and your edge simplicity is set to 0. If you're using the cutout filter, your number of levels, make them as high as they go, the edge fidelity high as they go, edge simplicity all the way to 0. Or if you're going to use the dry brush, well, not all these filters are going to look very good. So I would maybe either use the cutout, the dry brush, or possibly poster edge, depending on how you set your filter.
All the way up, all the way down.
So in the dry brush, the brush size has to be wet?
The dry brush?
Yeah.
What about it?
Do we have to like put in like the brush size, the brush detail?
Well, if you're doing that, I set my brush size all the way to 10, the brush detail to 10, and my texture is set to like 2.
So brush size to 10?
Yeah. At least that works pretty well for me. Or it looks pretty good to me.